Claude Garrett. His family fought for 30 years to prove his innocence.
Well, Fox 17 brought together 14 arson experts to expose the injustice of his conviction. And as Fox 17 News' Dennis Ferrier shows us, Garrett died last week, just 5 months after his release from prison.
Claude Garrett never quit. He quietly fought his conviction in the most thorough and persistent and honorable way.
He was often heard typing away on his processor as inmates would walk by his cell, and they just got tired of always hearing this click, 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 click. And what that amounted to was 45 appeals for authorities to hear the truth.
During that fight, he met Stuart Bayne, a fire investigator who dedicated 20 years of his life to freeing Garrett. The biggest fire experts in the world joined the cause. That there was no evidence Garrett started a fire that killed his fiancé, Lorie Lance. So many mistakes, blunders in the prosecution. And if there was no arson, there was no murder. Let's talk about the alleged murder weapon for a moment, kerosene. The prosecution maintains Claude Garrett poured kerosene all over the living room floor and then lit it. The problem is, kerosene is not gasoline. The fire experts will tell you kerosene ignites when the vapors reach 110 degrees. It was 50 degrees that night, no central heating. So what would happen if you put a match to kerosene? Eventually, even the district attorney who prosecuted Garrett agreed, and on a pretty May morning, Garrett got out of Riverbend a free man.
Welcome to the free world, man.
Thank you, brother.
He spent the entire 5 months reconnecting with his daughter and his 4-year-old grandson.
Claude's joy was his family. Claude's joy was being able to return to his family. Claude's joy was his 4-year-old grandson. And it's a special kind of event and rare to be plucked away from his 4-year-old daughter, only to be returned to his 4-year-old grandson.
Stuart Bayne will tell you he loved every second of his 5 months, cooking and coughing and enjoying the silence of the outdoors. He jumped back into the world without hesitation. Everything was going his way.
He lived those 5 months with his grandson, with his daughter, with a job, with a car, with a house. Everything he had hoped he could have, everything he'd hoped he could do.
And for his first Halloween as a free man, he dressed as a police officer. Think about that. What a sense of humor from a man who could have been eaten up with bitterness.
He holds no malice. He told me that repeatedly. I hold no malice.
5 months is such a short time. The death of this very fit 67-year-old is unfair. But it was also a life of value, a life to learn from. An epitaph worthy of Psalms 119. You're blessed when you stay on course, walking steadily on the road revealed by God.
Stay true to the end, and your victory will be secured. He's won because he stayed the course.
Thank you.
We helped Joseph Webster get out of prison for a murder he didn't commit. We interviewed witnesses and worked closely with his bulldog lawyer, Daniel Horwitz. Webster got out of prison Thanksgiving 2020. After that, we started getting stacks and stacks of prison mail, all with a common theme. I'm innocent. I didn't do it. I need your help. So we started reading, looking for the perfect case. Right before Christmas, a phone call from Private Detective Patrick Riley asking me to at least listen to Fire Private Investigator Stuart Bayne. We met Bayne in his Oliver Springs home in East Tennessee with his huge file containing 2 decades of material to free Claude Garrett. The Innocence Project had taken the case. That's a big deal because they only take 1% of the cases they're pitched. Even better, Davidson County's Conviction Review Unit was looking at the case. This is the special unit under Sonny Eaton that had decided to vacate the conviction against Joseph Webster. This case had everything. Huge investigative mistakes. How many mistakes were there in the original investigation?
I think they're still being found. There are so many flagrant misapplications of the scientific method.
It was reported Garrett's fiancé, Lorie Lance, died locked in their Nashville laundry room. It wasn't locked. If Garrett started the fire to kill his fiancé, why did they have nearly identical burns, which backed Garrett's story of the two waking up in a bed to fire? The fire investigator at the time said it was a kerosene fire poured in the living room. Experts say it wasn't true. Absolutely no proof of that. Let's talk about the alleged murder weapon for a moment, kerosene. The prosecution maintains Claude Garrett poured kerosene all over the living room floor and then lit it. The problem is, kerosene is not gasoline. The fire experts will tell you kerosene ignites when the vapors reach 110 degrees. It was 50 degrees that night, no central heating. So what would happen if you put a match to kerosene? As we continue to report, more and more experts come forward. Garrett risked punishment to talk to us on the phone from Riverbend, risks his impeccable 30-year prison record.
The state has you clothed in a tailor-made suit of guilt, and you have to start pulling on the threads. And if you keep pulling on the threads and never quit, eventually that suit will fall off of you.
By the time of our 7th report, 14 of the world's top experts said there's no evidence this was arson. And of course, no arson, no murder.
Welcome to the free world, man.
Thank you, brother.
So many people had so much to do with the release of Claude Garrett. It is an honor to have even a small role in such a big moment.
Mr. Ferrier, I appreciate you very much, and Fox 17, what you've done.
Convicted murderers don't just walk out of Riverbend maximum security prison. What made today so unusual is that Claude Garrett is no longer convicted of anything. And who would hold an innocent man in jail for even one more day who has suffered for 30 years? 30 years of hearings and appeals and trials and retrials all ended today in 10 minutes.
And Garrett's conviction in this case is vacated and rendered void.
Judge Monty Watkins said it's obvious to anyone there's no proof Claude Garrett set that fire that killed his fiancée Lorie Lance and burned him back in 1992. And if there is no arson, there is no murder. And so like that, he was released to a strange new world, a world where he doesn't own a change of clothes.
He's been in prison for 30 years, and what he wore there, he probably doesn't want to put back on.
His daughter's trying to get him ready for what's coming.
Doesn't know how to use a cell phone.
Garrett has champions all over the world, a who's who of fire investigators, the Innocence Project, and even finally the Nashville District Attorney's Office all asked for the conviction to be vacated. All very important, but no one like Stuart Bayne. The fire PI from Tennessee has used every opportunity ever offered to talk about Garrett's innocence for the past 21 years. Finally, that's no longer necessary.
It's a long time coming. It's due. There's words that fail me at a moment like this. I'm looking for the right phrase.
Maybe it isn't about words anymore. It's finally about relief. And when Claude Garrett walked out of Riverbend with a trash can full of appeals paperwork, it was Bayne who met him first.
Welcome to the free world, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the free world. Thank you.
You earned it.
When Garrett went to prison, his daughter Dina was 4.5 years old. Now his daughter has a 4.5-year-old son. What happened in between those 4.5-year-olds is too tragic to dwell on. But clearly, it's the one thing that matters most.
Her, my daughter, my grandson.
And then it was time to go. As a free man, you can do that with your arm around your daughter.